Johan, a very warm welcome to the Genius Leadership Podcast.
Thank you.
So I want to start with a question that I usually ask my audience or my guests, which is, when you hear the word sustainable business performance, what comes to your mind?
Well, when I was younger, it was more or less, to force everything as fast as possible and make as much money as you could in a short period of time. But being more experienced, I've learned to understand that, say sustainability comes in a wide range of areas. It's got to do with everything from nature to your own personnel and to yourself. So I would say sustainability is a smart way of working for me.
I like how you define it. So what kind of understanding came with this experience, and what kind of shifts are you making to be more sustainable as a leader?
I would say it started when I was a company where we were working with recruitment. We did a test of the personnel and tested the actual age and the physical age. And then during that year, we worked a lot with giving people the opportunity to exercise or change the way they looked into moving themselves, eating, and supporting them. And after that year, we lowered the age of people. I think it was somewhere around 10 years on average.
Wow.
So the biggest thing was we got a lady that was 62 to start going out and exercising, and she obviously did a great job, and she thanked everyone in the leadership team afterwards for the shift. But as I said, I mean, that is one example of sustainability when it comes to thinking long term. I always try to do things with my colleagues to make sure that we do have exercises, that we do engage people, and that we also make sure that people take the smaller steps towards the bigger goal. Not everybody is in line to or motivated to go running a marathon. So you'll have to, go in to see what people really like and to let them go doing what they think is interesting. And if you think it's motivated, then you can do a little bit at a time. And for some people, it's great to do a marathon. For some, it will be devastating. So you just need to give them the tool to do that.
So important to really customize the solutions and the approaches depending on what people's goals, motivation, and needs are.
Definitely. And I worked as a coach for 2 years, and some of the people you meet are just business oriented, but some of them are also into looking into the wider part of life. And some of them then wanted to be looking into exercising and stuff. But it's not about going to the gym all the time. It could be just taking the bus another or stepping off one before you should, and then just walk a little bit every day. So it's depending on who you have in front of you. So motivation is the biggest part, I would say.
Yeah. So important to tap into that so that the person can actually continue going even when you're done with coaching with that person. That's always my goal with my clients, to really get them self-sufficient, that I'm not needed anymore and I can take myself out and they can come back to me when it's time for them to go to the next level of their development. They need the extra push or new tools. But before that, no.
I totally agree. And I much put it as I do with parenting. I mean, the goal is not to be there every day, every decision they make, but I want them to be able to take the decision themselves. And I think that's what management is all about, and leadership, actually. I mean, if you want to be a manager, that's probably easy, but if you want to be a leader, you need to give them the tools, and you want to give them the circumstances where they can thrive. And I mean, that's a lot of blah blah blah, but unless you put it into practice and actually walk the talk. And so during my years, I think that's been the biggest shift that you talked about. So that's trusting people, or giving people the trust, and let them know that they have the trust. And if they take that trust and do something with it, there's more to come.
How do you manage the balance that with of trust and maybe some kind of guidance that employees need, because they all are on a different level, how much trust and freedom they want and how much direction they want? How do you learn that about your employees?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I mean, when I was in the army, they always said, trust is good, but control is better, and that's how it started off. And then you earn some trust, and you could try, and if you perform and if you do better than expected or on par, you're given more trust. And that's more or less how I think most people do. If they see that somebody is doing what you were supposed to do, then that's fine. If they don't, you need to have more detailed management on them. And so to me, it's very individual. But then again, I've worked in the recent years in small startups, so I have very close relationship with my colleagues. So of course I have the possibility. In a larger organization, you cannot touch everyone, but usually an organization is built up so you have everything from 5 to 30 people in your organizational level. So it usually works that way anyway. And the job is just that when you are in larger organizations, you just make to be sure that you coach or train or give your peers the right tools to do the same thing to the next level. And that's the hard part, I think, because being coaching people is okay. It's hard, but it's okay. But to tell somebody else to do the same thing, maybe not everyone is a teacher, right? Or a good teacher. So that's when you need to follow up and learn people how to follow up to make sure that they are performing the way we would be expecting them to.
Do you have any practical suggestions on how to learn to follow up? Maybe some good questions that you've learned that they work better, or some kind of structure?
Yeah, I usually work that way, that when we agree upon something, I try to ask them, so how much time do you need? And if they themselves come up with a date or a time that will suit them, I then ask them to say, okay, great. So how would you like for us to talk about it? And usually they say, let's have a meeting. Okay, so then we just book a meeting when we're there. I've learned that if you do that and do it straight away, there's motivation. They themselves understand that they have given you a date that they promised to deliver on. So it's not me telling them to. So they have more or less no excuse to not make it, because they were the one that told you so. And then also in the beginning, I would, for younger people or for inexperienced people, I would do halfway follow-up, or if they're very inexperienced, I would do just a day after follow-up, or just a couple of hours to see how they're doing. So it depends on the seniority of the person I work with, but I always tend to have an end date or an end goal that they say, this is the time I'm going to be delivering on what we agreed upon. But if it doesn't work, then I need to go back to the detail type of working and say, okay, let's have a meeting and work this through. This is what I would be expecting you to deliver. Then the next time you will be doing this. So it's very dependent on situation.
And it sounds like it's grounded on creating this ownership, but also having the accountability. So when you're asking your employees, okay, when do you think you can do it, or how much time do you need, and what kind of support do you need from me? You're really giving them the freedom to choose how to do it. You gave the framework, you have the scope of the task, but then within that, people can go around and adjust to their needs, their way of working, and so on. And they have you as a leader to help them on the way.
Yeah, I agree. And I can see the performance that's just increased over the years if you do it that way. And people think it's much more fun, apart from those who are not performing, but they will not be having fun anyways. So it's better for the overall in that sense. So I think and I do the same thing when I work with customers. When I am a salesperson, I tend to ask them, so when would you like to have this material? when I was younger, I would say, would it be okay for you to get this tomorrow? And I would work all night long to get that thing done. But nowadays I ask them and they say, well, next week will go okay. So my schedule has been a lot better since I started open my ears and not talk too much.
Talking about sustainable and smart leadership, right?
That's
that
right.
comes with experience.
That's right.
All right. I would like to transition to the topic that we will have as the main scope for today, and that is part of the building the brand as a company conversation. And you are now part of the team that are actually creating a completely new category of products and services.
That's right.
At Wonderword, you are working with interactive audiobooks, and there are so many applications of the technology that you have as the background or the engine for that. So I would like to discuss what it takes for a company to bring a completely new product of a new category to the market, and also what does it take from you as a leader or leadership team to get there or to go through this process in a sustainable way.
Yeah. Well, there were many questions as one, but I could try and start with the first one. How do you build a brand? Well, first of all, I've learned through all the startups I've been into that you cannot do it alone. And that goes with both the colleagues you have, but also with the partnership that is needed. If you are to thrive fast and to succeed with what you're doing, you need to do it rather fast, because otherwise people would, just leave you after a while, both the investors and the employees and whoever. If you don't perform, you're out. So it's important to do it rather quickly and have some momentum about it. Otherwise, other people will also gain on you on getting to the goal. So partnership is very important. And I could just say that when we talk about Wonderword, we can see a big difference in the way that when we create, for example, an interactive audio game or an interactive audio book and have it published by ourselves, it's a lot harder to get out to the public, rather than if we buy or have an agreement with an IP owner who has a rather well-known IP, then the same type of book or the same type of game will have a lot easier to reach more people because they already have a community that they can talk to. So it's more expensive to get the community in the beginning, but in the long run, it's cheaper and it's more fun and it's better. So you're always, I would say, you're always dependent on some type of partnership. So who can I partner with? And I think I've seen that in many scenarios in life. Everything from I need a partner to create my family. Alone, I will be rather not successful. And to actually work with other people to build a business. And because I'm only myself, but if I get a lot of smart people around me and we together can work, you come up with so much better ideas. And with the right environment where you challenge yourselves on constantly improving and creating that feedback culture, where in every meeting you ask yourself, how can I do this better? And in everything you do, just, okay, how can we do this next time? How can we just be more effective? That is what you need to get to where you want to go, to reach your vision, actually.
I love a lot of points that you covered here. And I think one of the points that I would like to dig deeper and again get practical on is the partnerships. How can entrepreneurs listening to us, watching us, think about it? What kind of questions can they ask themselves to start thinking outside of the box and find those categories of people in their space or other spaces with whom they can partner up?
Yeah, first of all, I would just look at the market and see who else is touching the customer base that we want to reach. And that could be almost anything. Sometimes we're just looking into what we're talking about, but if you find that synergy of people who already have your customers or are touching your customers, and they can bring another service in there that would make it even more interesting, then there's a win for all of us, even the customers. I have many examples of that. One would be I was working with a software as a service for reducing sick leave in companies, and direct sales towards the HR department was a pretty hard sale. But if I was combining myself with another HR system or a financial system, they already had a contact with the customer. So in that case, I could convince the supplier of the financial system or the HR system that this is really great, and we could go together, or they could recommend the customer to talk to us, and that was a lot easier. Obviously, you need to give away some sort of a revenue for that, a revenue share or something, but it did speed up the time to market and the time to get to a new customer. When you're coming with a new type of solution like we are at Wonderword, where people haven't heard about it before, interactive audio, what is that? And if we then in this case partner with an IP owner of, for example, Little Bee, that have this wonderful children's book, Tales of Sasha, they already have people who love it and they want to buy everything around it. So they go and purchase this interactive audiobook and realize, oh, great, this is fun for my child learning math. And all of a sudden they start looking at our other products. So it's not only the revenue for that product, it gains interest in whatever we have on our plate. So that's one example of or two actually of partnerships that we have done.
Thanks a lot for sharing those, Johan. I think that's good to really discuss it on those practical and example levels, that it makes it easier for people to apply it in their own businesses and their lives. And I like how you covered that the partnerships are about everything, not only business, but also private life, right? It can be looking for a partner for life to create a family. It could be looking for a friend who can be your accountability buddy and support in your hobbies or your private goals. So it's really good, again, to think about it like, I can apply it to everywhere. And the learnings and whatever we're hearing here, they're really applicable not only to your business, but to you as a leader, as the whole you, not only the person or professional you. Thanks for that. Johan, you just said that people react to that like, oh, interactive audio, what is that? So how do you go around and how do you explain it, both to potential partners, but also to the market potential buyers of your services?
First of all, I try to actually show it to them if I have the possibility. It's a little bit harder over link, but that could be done as well. Since we're working with entertainment, I tend to show them my mobile phone and just show the game or the entertainment that we have. Otherwise, I more or less try to get them into the mode. So pretend imagine you're having an interactive audio book, and imagine then that you could actually choose if the person should go to the left or to the right, or drive a certain car, or if you're in a murder history, that you could choose if the person should go into the bar and ask somebody if what's happened, and or you can choose to go and look at the video surveillance cameras to see. All of a sudden, this is an interactive audio and not just what A to B listening audio. So I try to give people the understanding that you can use this type of entertainment not only sitting in front of a computer or on your phone. You could just actually do whatever you want to. You can drive a car because you can have both hands on the wheel and the eyes on the road. You can take down the screen because a lot of parents or people don't want to be on the screen so much as they are today and lose their necks, so to speak. So that's another reason for us to go out and tell that this is a lot more healthier way of doing it. But I think we're evolving from we started reading books, and now a lot of people are testing the books that are just read out and the audio books in general. And I think that there are many people who would like to be involved. Imagine you would be with Harry Potter and you could be the one that actually decided if he went to left in the labyrinth, or if he went in the maze, or if he went right. And depending on what you chose, he would get killed, or he would live, or he would, so I think you get a very immersive kind of feeling.
It sounds like you're using a lot of storytelling when you are trying to explain what you do and what your service or product is, both
Yeah.
if it's possible through showing it and like creating the experience, and if not possible, creating experience through storytelling. Do you also use storytelling internally in the team, kind of training each other or to create, or how does it go? Like, how do you create something that doesn't exist on the market? Where do your ideas come from?
Well, it started off with our founder Peter Zetterberg, who's been living in stories his whole life, and working at Xbox, and was part of the business of buying the Minecraft game once upon a time. He is a splendid person when it comes to ideas, and he just pops them out, and there's plenty to take from. Then to succeed, you need to have all different types of people. I have awesome writers. I have awesome people who knows music, and I have awesome developers, and I have people who are awesome in developing servers. Alone, we couldn't do it, but together we can do a lot. I tried to bring some business savviness into the company. The specialists have their competences, and I need for them to be able to thrive in their area and not, push them back too much. They need to have that area of freedom to create. But then again, you still have you need to have to be a little bit of savvy when it comes to business, because if they would have had a blank piece of paper, they could go on for years developing something that we think is good enough to sell. So it's a trade-off, really. So I tend to open the lid up, so to speak, and they have a lot of ideas. That's not the problem. And then we just need to decide, so which one do we go for, and how do we do it? How long time will we give that? So that's what's fun about it. I don't really have to push in that sense. So we decide on what to do, and then we produce it. And along the way, there's a lot of ideas that comes around, and we put them on the parking lot for the next time. And the same thing goes with our interactive audio engine that we're developing, and on which we are developing our games already. But that's coming out in September, and for that development, it's the same thing, really. There's so many ideas if you ask people. It's just the trick. You need to ask people, not just sit on your own chamber and try to develop everything by yourself. And this is partnering again, and this time you're partnering with the users, and you give them something that, hey, if you try this out, and you can use it for free for a certain amount of time, and all of a sudden people are very eager to give and to share. And that's another part of partnership. So my job is to collect the ideas and to decide, sometimes by myself and many times collectively, what is the smartest thing to do.
How do you get your different teams together to communicate with each other and to understand each other and to not create conflicts? I'm thinking writers, those are very creative people, music people, but then you also have developers who work with implementing that stuff.
Yeah, a good question. I don't have a written document, a blueprint for it. I would say it's situational leadership in that sense. There are I wouldn't say conflicts, but there are different type of ideas of how to do things, and then sometimes you need to bring them to the same table in the same room and discuss it and say, okay, I know you have different opinions, but how can we go forward? And when we're done in this room, we all need to be on the same page, and we need to fight for the same thing. And that is really important, not only in the leadership team, but also in the company, that we fight for the same thing. And we have the possibility to fight about your opinion, but when we leave this room, we should be a united company or group towards the rest. And that goes with my family, that goes with the leadership team, it goes with the company. Everybody is thriving from having an idea to work together with towards a goal. And if you create that environment, you can move mountains in that sense.
How do you work with that? Do you have continuous conversations about your values, the mission and vision, and the goals of the company? Or What's the secret there?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a secret. It's just doing it. I've seen many companies over the year that spent their kickoffs with driving fast cars or going somewhere on a beach or whatever. We tend to. I've been through a few companies, and where we spent some time on recreation and fun, we before that was working on our vision and mission together. We were working with how we can get better in certain areas. So actually last Monday or a few days ago, we had our kickoff for the year. And then before we, in the mornings, we worked with behavior and how people behave in the company. We had some people coming in and lecturing on behaviors, and then you need to work with that in the company and talk about that and see certain examples. In the afternoon, we worked with our processes, how we can be better in everything we do, and it's important that everybody works together on it, so it's not just me standing up there telling them that this is wrong, but that we together find out the solution and go for it. And in the afternoon, at dinner, we had a great barbecue together. So that's how I do it. Continuously work with improvement, and to remind people that your behavior is important on where we will go, and also to give each other feedback, and positive and feedback that can make you improve as well. And that's a learning. In the beginning, nobody wants somebody new to tell you that you did something wrong. But if you have an organization where people think that they are meaning well and they do it because they want you to be better and they're your friend, that's another situation. And then you can just celebrate mistakes and just learn from them.
Well, what are your ways to actually gain that trust or that openness, and so that people understand that when Johan comes with something, he wants that for my own sake?
I think it's got to do with sharing and showing that you yourself is vulnerable, that you're not perfect. And that I go back to what I do with my kids, and I could just say that my daughter's going to kill me now, but she crashed a car one time when we were out driving. It was a learner permit type of thing, and she hadn't her license yet, and we crashed into a taxi. And I went out and looked at it, and then I gave her a hug. And opposed to yelling at her, what the are you doing? So my behavior will steer future behaviors of her. And the same thing goes with the company. If I go in and publicly tell somebody that you can go somewhere else because you're not doing a good job, that will have a certain behaviors on their behalf going forward. They will not tell me if something is wrong. And the worst thing that could happen is that we have something that is wrong, and nobody tells me. So I need to be in the forefront telling people that I did wrong, and I can improve, and let's get ideas on how to do that. And it should be, anybody can come up to me and say, this is wrong, we need to do something about it. Some people call it Toyota concept. I know that Tesla has been doing the same thing. There are a bunch of companies that do it, but there's Scania was celebrating people who came out with problems and looked in that way. But I think that for me, the most important thing is to show that it's great to bring up problems and do it as soon as you see them. And you should not be hitting on them for bringing them there. You should celebrate them for bringing it up now, rather now than later, because later is going to be very expensive.
For sure.
Then it goes the same way with friendship. And if somebody is doing something wrong that irritates you, I mean, if you just leave that and you wait and wait and wait, you don't say anything, and in the end, you're going to be so irritated. But if you told them in the beginning, say, you know what, you're snoring, and do something about it.
Yeah, we don't explode, and that is unusual, I would say. Still, I have been like this all the time, and I've been honestly called childish in the professional environment, because I would bring up the issues before they explode, because I just want to deal with them and I don't want to have that irritation. I don't want to have that energy when I come into the room and I know that, okay, there is some tension here and there's elephant in the room. It's just annoying and it's draining. And like, why? Why do we need to do that? We can talk, we're adults. So how do you nurture that? If you have any resistance, because as I said, I had resistance in my professional experience. How did you go around that?
Well, first of all, I would just want to say it's hard to do it. It's not something that you easily do. So that's the baseline. What we've been doing is in change. When I've been doing change management consultancy, and also when I've been in the situation myself, is that it's very important to think into the situation when this happens. Who's going to react to the changes? And who's going to be mad? And you could just actually think about who would be, inspired and who will be mad about the situation. And many times I've tried to involve the people that I know will be most resistant to change in the process of doing the change. And therefore I'm more or less, taking down the sound around this whole change thing. And because usually it's around 2-3% that don't like the change and they shout out about it, and somewhere around 75% are okay with it, and you have 10% that just love it. But we tend to listen most to the ones who are shouting and want to resist the change, and all of a sudden that's the whole truth for the whole organization. If you think about smart and do something about it, you can think in advance of it. It doesn't work all the time, but at least you tried, right?
How do you do it if you're a consultant and you come into the team that you don't know yet?
Oh well, then of course, I mean it is harder, but you can still consult them and give them the tools to talk about it, and you can coach them to say, okay, I know you're going to do a big change here. So who are the people who usually oppose to this? And they will tell, and they will start thinking themselves. And you always see that, okay, I know it's this guy or this girl. So, okay, what will they say? How could you get them involved in this? And then all of a sudden you can see many times they go, that's how I'm going to do it. And many times I ask them, so how can you invite them into the actual process and convince them in the beginning, and not have them shouting in a room at the end when you already decided everything. Because that's how people react when something changes. They want to know what's going on, and the next reaction, what's in it for me? And if they can hear that in the beginning, and they can influence where you're going, it's a lot easier.
You get the buy-in. You get them as some kind of ambassador of the change as well.
And all of a sudden it's even stronger, because everybody knows that person usually is opposed to change, and all of a sudden when this person is pro, then this has to be really good. So it's a little bit harder in the beginning and more cumbersome, but I've felt over the years that it's more it pays off really well. And it's more fun.
It's not easy. It's not easy, as you said earlier, Johan, but it's fun, and it's very rewarding to have it when you are driven by some mission of yours, some purpose that you see, and you manage to get other people on board to actually join forces and create synergies. That's just the beauty of the process of being a leader. I would like to go back to the creating a new brand or creating a whole new product category. With you going through that process right now, what are the most exciting things about that? And what are the challenges that you feel like, can we skip those, please?
Well, for ones is that, they more or less tie together. The challenges is that people don't understand what you're doing. I think that we have spent a lot of money in many businesses I've been in where we didn't tell the audience what we're doing. We've been living with this project for like 2 years, and we know what it is, and then we forget about that the customers don't have a clue, and we sell it like everybody has the same information as we have, and therefore we're missing a lot of people. So in my case, we could just say, okay, I'm just throwing up a picture of a game or an interactive book on a poster or a tableau, or just crossing your computer, and I'm not telling you what it is it's all about. So if nobody knows about the entertainment, they don't know where to go to find it. So many times you need to just show where you're going to use this. So we're working with user scenarios and making sure that people know that you can actually use it in the car, you can use it when you're doing the dishes, and you can actually see that. And so that's how we work with it, and trying to get people to understand when and where and why you should use it. And when we have not done that, it's been a failure, because you spend a lot of money and nobody's reacting to it. You can see that absolutely no one is buying the product for a certain time. And it hurts, because you think it's so beautiful and good, but you just haven't told people. And sometimes I was in the business of schools. We built a platform for kids in the 7th to 9th grade. It was a beautiful platform. We won prizes for the best platform 2 years in a row. But we thought that we could go to the principal of the school and sell it. And we realized after a while, after a lot of selling, that the principal was not the one deciding what books to buy. So we were going to the wrong person. In many schools in Sweden, it was the math teacher and the Swedish teacher that was deciding what books to buy. And they were not interested in buying a platform. They wanted to have better books for themselves. So sometimes you're just, you should be spending time understanding the customer so that you don't sell them the wrong things. And that's what's hard. When you approach people with a new product and they don't know what you're selling, it's hard for them also to understand what it's for. So you need to spend a lot of time showing them the scenarios when it's great to use it. And the example of the platform I was talking about in the school, I think we spent a lot of money on marketing in general. And then we got an influencer who was sitting there to do his final exam, and he did a podcast or a video cast on or a blog on how this tool was helping him. And he was in the 9th grade, and he was, I can't do anything, but now I got this platform, it's so great. And all of a sudden we reached like 50,000 people just because we understood who the customer was. So the hardest part is not knowing who the customer is, and what they want, and what's important to them. And it takes a little while to get into that, but you just need to investigate, and as much as possible use data to analyze the behavior of people. If you change that to that, so it's more or less A/B testing, right? But if you're in a new organization, if you're in a new product area, it's hard to understand what is normal. For us, for example, if we get a conversion rate, or if we get a retention rate, what is that? Is that normal? Or should we compare us to normal games, or should we compare us to the books, or what? We don't know yet. Money is one thing, but also the behaviors is another. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does it in a good way. Talking about engaging the customer or learning and to understand them, when do you start with that? What would you need to have as an idea or product? How far should you be with a prototype or whatever before you start engaging them, so that you don't do it too early, but don't wait for too long either?
Yeah, I would say as early as possible, because then you can alter it along the way. If you start too late, then you will be spending too much time on doing the wrong things. And there are plenty of books reading on this iterative development or lean startups. There are many books to read about it, but try to iterate as much as possible and test on the presumable customer is the best way. And then, of course, there's always a risk of somebody stealing your idea and running, but so far, I haven't seen that many that steal your product. It's just in early stages startups, it's more that they want to see that it actually flies before they are interested in stealing anything. They don't have time for that. So I would say that getting a test audience that is close to what you think would be your audience is the best way. And I think it's always a danger that you're little bit lazy. You get to test people around you instead of getting them internationally. It's a little bit harder to get the right demography, but in the end, it's going to give you a lot better. For us, for example, our market is more or less America, US. And of course, we can go and get testers from where we live, my friends around the corner, but they're not in zone really. It's nice of them to help me out, but it would be smarter of me to actually get a proper test bed in the US or where my customers are, instead of making the easy choice of asking a couple of friends. And that's something you need to work with.
That's a very good piece of advice, Johan. I would like to go back quickly to one of the things that you mentioned, and then maybe we'll wrap up, being mindful of the time. You talked about having this idea of good enough, right? And not perfecting for too long. How do you exercise that? Especially as an entrepreneur, especially if you're a founder, I can imagine that when you are the idea creator, and then you try to implement it and bring it to the person, to the market, to your customers, it's quite hard to say like, yeah, okay, let's push it out in the world and then see what happens and improve it as we go.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's a learning of knowing your colleagues and knowing yourself. And I mean, for example, if I am the person who is eager to get going, and it's more important for me to throw things out than to actually do it thoroughly, and then you have a colleague who's the other way around, then it's a good combination. But if you just have people around you who are the same, you probably throw out too many things too fast with low quality. So if you're honest to yourself and know your own personality and who you are, you need to pick people around you who would be your opposite. It's a lot harder because you're not always going to be agreeing, but at least you're going to get most probably somewhere around where the truth is. And then you could understand, so is it smart to spend 2 more years in developing this, or should we go out and test it on a few people? And I know people around me for years that they always wanted to wait until it was perfect, and I told them there's no way, because we don't have time for that, because otherwise we will have to go out and raise more money, and people don't want to invest in things unless they see some sort of a progress. So that's why you also need to have some iteration in how you do it and test it. Because if you can prove progress, and if you can prove that people like it, either by somebody buying it or by somebody rating it, then that's really cool. I mean, we have titles out now that we released that was free to play, and reaching hundreds and thousands of skills activations, and that's really cool. Then you know that something is working. But that was not released just when everything was done. We did iterative development, and all of a sudden you now have a big volume to test on. So that's really great. But you need to do it as early as possible. But then again, you need to tell people the expectation of what they're testing. So you cannot just throw something out and say, okay, test this, and they will say, okay, well, this is not done. This doesn't look well. You should have told them where you are in the development stages, so you will get their honest feedback, and also say, okay, how much would you pay for this? And some people will say nothing, because it's not good enough. So that's you have to, you can't be afraid of the feedback. It's feedback is gold.
For sure. So good, Johan. I'll just summarize what I've heard. Tap into the diversity of your team so that you're actually pushing each other or pulling each other whenever you need it, so that together you're actually creating this kind of golden middle between early enough and not too late and so on. But then also, as you said, expectation management with people who are testing your ideas and your products, so that they know what they're testing. Is it a prototype? Is that the ready to go to market product, or anything in between? So that's a very, very good point to actually make it clear. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Johan, I would like to wrap up with 3 questions. First of them is, what would be your 3 pieces of advice to the genius leaders tuning in? And that can be a summary of what we've already discussed, or something that we have missed and you would like to cover.
Well, first of all, be bold and try things out. Ideas are great, but if you don't try them out and if you don't work for them, nothing is ever going to happen. And also make sure that you have people around you that don't agree to what you're saying. Agreement is nice, but it's not progress. It's not going to lead you to success all the time. And make sure you have fun. If you're not having fun, I mean, in the end of the day, when you're lying there dying, what have you achieved? So make sure you like what you're doing.
So important.
And
how are you making sure that it's fun?
Well, I try to have as fun as possible, both in my free time and I try to meet up with friends and family. I try to have a mix of friends, family, and work. There's plenty of books on that as well, but I tried to live this as well over the years, and not only be with my family all the time, and not only work all the time, and not only exercise all the time, but try to mix it, and to have the end goal in mind that I'm going to live until I'm 100. And what do I need to do then? I can't work all the time, because then I will be exhausted, and I can't just be with my friends, because then I will have no family and so forth. So, but that's my choice, and I've done it. So I worked at Microsoft a bunch of years ago. We had this marvelous training with the 7 habits of highly successful people, and it started off with a person. Imagine you come into a church and you see a lot of people, you recognize them, and you go off and you see an open casket, and it's you're dead. You have your friends, your family. What do you want them to say about you? And it got me thinking, and I decided to just mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, so important. Yeah, so Stephen Covey's book, the 7 habits that you're talking about, has had a big impact on my life as well, and my personal development. It's a book that I warmly recommend to many people.
Yep.
So, Johan, one piece of advice, the practical action step that genius leaders can take today after listening to us, what would that be?
Well, think of a longer period than just tomorrow. Make sure that you have a leadership and a way of living that is sustainable, so that you can look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of what you've achieved, and also make sure that people can be with you the whole journey. If you do that and show people that you care about them, you will get something back.
Beautiful. I love it how you managed to bring this conversation full circle. We started with the sustainable leadership or business performance, and then you wrapped it up with that as well. Johan, if people want to learn more about you, about the Wonder Word, what are the best ways to get along or to get acquainted with you?
Well, the easiest way is to go to wonderword.net. And there you can learn more, or you can just go, Alexa, open Cursed Painting, and you will play one of the games.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes and let people play. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing so openly about your journey so far. And best of luck and best of success to you and your team.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.